What's good, y'all? Welcome back! Another review. You know how this goes. I just hurt my hand a little. How did that hurt my hand? Like, what the heck? Okay. Spider-Man Homecoming, or as I put, Spider-Man HC. The rating I give it, and I feel really bad for giving it this, a 6.7 out of 10. Now, I am an avid Spider-Man fan, and don't get me wrong, when I first watched this, I loved it. I didn't have that same feel when I watched it again. So I was watching it, and now I'll address it. Yes, he is kind of like Iron Boy Jr. in this, which a lot of people mention all the time, and it kind of gets on my nerves when they mention all the time, that's not Spider-Man, it's Iron Man Jr. I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, it feels like they're over-exaggerating at times. But then again, what do I know? I'm just down here doing dumb reviews. But I did enjoy the movie, but there were problems I had with it. For one thing, I really think if they even introduced Karen, it should have just been in the Iron Spider suit, not into his, regular suit. And I also have mixed feelings, because I like Ned, and he adds stuff to the story, being, smart and being able to hack the suit. But at the same time, Peter is smart enough to hack the suit himself, but he doesn't, which was kind of confusing. He also, you could say this for every Spider-Man, Raimi, Chasm, and the MCU. Their spider senses aren't exactly the most, working? That doesn't even really make sense, but you get what I mean. They don't really work that well. Like, in Civil War, it seemed like his spidey sense were actually working pretty good. Like, he was able to sense when Ant-Man hit him. He was able to... You get what I mean. In Civil War, he did a good job when he played in Civil War. And then we have... Look, I'm probably going to get flack for this, but I don't really care that much that Uncle Ben isn't really mentioned in the MCU. And I kind of feel bad for saying that. I have mixed feelings about it, because he is Uncle Ben. He is the reason why Spider-Man is Spider-Man. So, I guess I'm kind of like indifferent, because I'm okay with him having father figures. I like Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man's relationship, both in Spider-Man 2 and in Spider-Man PS4. It's just, it makes sense. It is Peter Parker to reach out and try to have a father figure, and I think a lot of people didn't really like it because it was Tony Stark, another hero, and not having his whole life ruined, having another villain as a father figure. This has happened a lot, especially in the Raimi trilogy. You had Norman Osborn as a father figure and Dr. Octavius as a father figure, and they both betrayed him. And obviously, as I said, in Spider-Man PS4, same thing happened, Dr. Octopus. So it makes sense that Peter would want to latch on to a father figure, especially one that is as smart, if not smarter than him, Tony Stark. So it obviously makes sense, in my opinion, why he would, want to be there with Tony. Now, a lot of people over-exaggerate and say, he is his son, Tony's son, and, sort of. Like, he wasn't adopted for one thing, so if you want to go like the legal route, he isn't. He's not biologically his son, but I will admit they do have father-son chemistry, but they haven't really shown too much in the time they had together, especially in this film. Uh, and this is the film that they had the most screen time with each other, with father-son time. Uh, the second would be Infinity War, I think. I'd have to rewatch it. And before you ask, no, Infinity War, Civil War, and Endgame will not be part of the Spider-Man review. I will mention them because this does tie into those universes. Well, the universe, it's only one at the moment. I mean, they are adding the multiverse and all. But I'm focusing just on Spider-Man, aka Peter Parker, is the main character. I mean, I am adding Eddie Brock, and he's not really Spider-Man or Peter Parker, but he will be part of the review as well as Morbius. But you get where I'm coming from. I'm trying to get the solo movies, not the team-up movies, if that makes sense. Okay. Even though this is kind of a team-up movie with Iron Man. Now, I have a little bit of a hiccup there. A lot of people over-exaggerate Iron Man's involvement in this movie. He's only in it for about 10 minutes, and I know so many people that over-exaggerate it like he was in it for an hour. And I forgot how long this movie is. 2 hours and 39 minutes. The 2 hour and 39 minute movie. You also have to cut out a minute or two for the opening and about 5 to 10 minutes for the credits. So he wasn't in it for that long. Either way, it is for the most part Spider-Man's story. Now, I will admit, having the Vulture and in the later movie, which we will talk about later, do have some Tony Stark saturation into it. I will admit I do like this movie. I've already admitted it, but I will admit it has flaws. I said falls. It's flaws. Okay. So I'm just going to try to get all the bad out there. Karen being in the regular suit instead of just being inside the Iron Spider suit. Iron Man being, not necessarily being in the movie, because I don't think it was a bad thing he was in the movie. It's just, he kind of, at times, stole the show. I don't want to be rude to Tom Holland because I love his Spider-Man, but at times, Robert Downey Jr. just kind of stole the whole movie. If that made sense. And it dragged on way too long on certain scenes. I'll say this again, every Spider-Man movie kind of has that flaw. There's at points where the movie just kind of draws out way too long for my liking. Like Infinity War, it's a long movie, but I didn't have that feeling that it was a long movie. It was fast-paced, but at the same time, it wasn't too fast-paced where it overlooked certain things. But trying to get my thoughts across, but I don't really know how to explain it. But that's pretty much all the bad. It drew out way too long at times. Robert Downey Jr. kind of stole the show. Now, this is not hate to Robert Downey Jr. or to Tom Holland. Quite the opposite. I love both of their acting, but it's kind of hard to explain, if that makes sense. There was at times where I felt like Tony's lines, Robert Downey Jr.'s lines, were more impactful at points than Peter's. Which, I mean, by a story standpoint, that kind of makes sense. Tony's been a hero way longer than Spidey has. In this, he's only been a hero for, what, a couple months? 8, 9 months, I think. So it kind of makes sense about that. But at the same time, Tony is kind of Tony. Now, don't get me wrong. I will be doing a review on the MCU, and he's always had a good personality. He's always been a good person. It's just kind of been deep down inside, and he's never really let out those emotions out, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's push Tony, Iron Man, out of the way. Let's get into the good. Not that he was bad, but let's get that tangent out of the way and just appreciate the good of the movie. The crime fighting I really, really enjoyed. Him showing him stopping low-level thugs. Michael Keaton was a very, very good villain. He was very good as the Vulture. I thought he was okay as Batman. Has nothing to do with it, but I was wearing a Batman shirt. I actually went to China Coast. It's a good restaurant. Had some, forgot what they're called, but like sugar balls, and I had some crepe ragoon, and, forgot what it's called, but I have it in the box. It's like meat on a stick, beef, and chicken. Got both. Okay. I am going everywhere. So, yeah, I liked his performance. I liked the crime fighting aspect, just the regular street level thugs. I also liked him helping the old lady, getting the bike. It really felt Spider-Man-esque. I love the web shooters. Now, I'm pretty sure it's been a while. It's been like a month or two since I did the review on The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, but I did enthusiate how much I loved web shooters. Always have. And that is a thing that I've always kind of loved because it's Spider-Man. When I first saw them, it wasn't even in the Raimi films. Not the Raimi. He didn't even have web shooters, and that's what I was trying to get. That's why it was weird to me in the Raimi films. I remember when I first watched them was what I was trying to say. Because I watched the animated series, and no, I'm not talking about the Spectacular Spider-Man as much as I love it. I'm talking about the OG 90s Spider-Man series, and he used web shooters. And I loved it, and then Raimi's Spider-Man comes out just spewing webs through his wrist, and I'm like, bro, that's gross. The suit. I thought the suit was okay. Now, I did love the comic booky 1990s, not 1990s, more like 1960s design. Basically, the OG Spider-Man design is what I'm trying to say. It does have that design. I feel like some people kind of over-exaggerated, and I feel bad for saying that because I feel like I'm just like that one fanboy that's always being like, you guys are just over-exaggerating. But in this point, I kind of feel like it's true. I mean, there are certain points in fandoms where it just feels like it's true. I felt like that with the prequels, with Star Wars, and it feels like it with pretty much any new incarnation of Spider-Man. Now, there's no hate here, obviously, if you like Raimi, Chasm, or MCU Spider-Man. I love all three of them. But at times, they kind of butt heads with each other on who's my favorite, and also I've seen fandoms butt heads over each other, over the three different Spider-Men, so it kind of makes me nervous even talking about the subject of Spider-Man, especially the MCU, because he's kind of been the most controversial in the group. But, as I was saying, the suit was okay in my opinion. Like, if I was rating suits, he would get probably a 6 or a 7. Now, I did love the Let's Go Spider-Man scene where he got crushed by all the rubble. Why am I having so much trouble speaking? And this is right after I said, oh, I'm gonna learn German, Japanese, French, and Spanish. What's wrong with me? Okay. So, I did love the Let's Go Spider-Man. And I felt like the lesson in the movie was very good. It's not the suit that makes Spider-Man. And I've actually seen people before say, they copied that from Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse. And for those who say that, Spider-Man Homecoming came out before that, for one thing. And the message was the same yet different with Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse. It always fits eventually. That was the kind of the moral of the story of Into the Spider-Verse 1, and they're making a second one, which I'm excited for. God, I'm really rambling out, and I don't even know if people are going to watch this all the way through. If you are, you're a trooper. I know I can go out. So they kind of made this movie, I'm not gonna lie, very much, we're in the MCU. I'm Spider-Man in the MCU. By doing that, they threw Easter eggs of Thor, Hulk, the Avengers, and obviously Iron Man was in it. And then they were removing Avengers Tower, all that stuff. And, there were a lot of things that I liked. Like, for one thing, he had a old phone, which kind of, told you, he was having money problems compared to everyone else in the movie who had newer phones. And I think a lot of people kind of look past some of these things when they watch MCU Spider-Man, because they usually are just straight up hating on him. And usually say, he has no money problems. But at times it really seems like he does. Like, for one instance, I know this isn't part of Homecoming, but in Civil War, it showed him getting trash, going through trash, dumpster diving, grabbing tech, and fixing it, and it seemed like he was trying to sell it to make profit or keeping it himself. So that kind of showed that he was indeed having money problems. I mean, Tony was even like, where'd you get that thrift shop? He was like, no, I refurbished it, basically, is what he said. So I'm kind of on the defensive for MCU Spider-Man, but I'm also accepting of its flaws. I listen to the flaws that people have, and if it's a good flaw, like if it makes sense, if it's reasonable, I'll accept it. Because there are reasonable flaws that people give in the MCU movies, and then there are some that are just kind of way out there, and I'm like, what are you even going on about, basically? Well, I can't really think of anything else to really say about this movie. I mean, you heard my good, you heard my bad, you saw what number I gave it. But as I said, this movie does hold a place in my heart. There are a lot of scenes that I love in it. Like, one of my favorite scenes is when they're in the car going to Homecoming, and Michael Keaton, aka Vulture, learns that Peter Parker and Spider-Man are one and the same, and the red light shines on his face, and it turns green, and he's looking all menacing, looking at Peter. that was also a very, very good scene in my opinion. Uh, as I said, I kind of want to end this video. We've already been going on for over 20 minutes on this movie. I think this is my longest review I've ever done. And I feel bad for keeping you all here. I mean, I can't even get my full thoughts across. I almost want to make, like, Homecoming a 3-part. Because there are scenes I didn't like, but there are scenes that I loved. And then there's in the middle that I liked. Like, I love the Vulture scene where they are just, in the car, as I said not too long ago. And I love the "Come on, Spider-Man" lifting the rubble off him. And then I loved when he saved the Vulture and the Vulture didn't give out Peter's identity. Those were all things that I loved. And I also loved Spider-Man's old outfit. I didn't even get to get into that. His homemade outfit, I absolutely loved it. I know people who didn't, but I honestly loved it. It felt like Spider-Man when he has no money. But yeah, I'm really excited for Spider-Man 3. They haven't really given it the, quote-unquote title. I mean, they have given it a running title, but not a full-on title. And we're actually about to see our own independent Spider-Man in that film, if what everyone is saying is correct, which I'm going to be excited for. But again, I've been drawing out this video way too long. I hope you guys enjoyed. I mean, if you want me to do a part 2, I probably won't do it. And I'll tell you why. Because I'll have to rewatch the movie, rewatch my own video, have to think my thoughts across, try to think of what else I liked. If I did do it, it would come out of pretty much nowhere. So I'll leave it up to you guys. Would you be okay with a part 2 of this Homecoming review? Because there's just a bunch of stuff in this movie that I both loved, liked, and hate. Not really much on I hate, because, I don't hate Tony Stark's role in this movie. I actually liked it pretty well, but I didn't exactly love it because he kind of... I don't really know how to explain it. If the suit part, when he took Peter's suit away, I liked. And the beginning of the movie, the film by Peter Parker, when they're in the limousine, I liked that. There are little awkward interactions, and he, goes in for a hug, and he says, it's not a hug, I'm just opening the door. Again, there's just so much that happens in the film. And you know what? I may even redo my review and retcon a few things that I said, because my opinion is kind of ever-changing at times. But I will see you all in the next video. I hope you enjoyed. There may or may not be a part 2 if you guys want it. Again, it will come out of pretty much nowhere. And I'll see y'all later. Bye.